All right. All right. Let's just dive in here. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today to learn more about this Town of Westfield Housing Needs Assessment. My name is Amy Collins. I'm here with Rachel Selsky from Camoin 310. So we are a community and economic development consulting firm with offices Saratoga Springs and Brattleboro, among other places. I'm going to be talking for about 15 to 20 minutes about the assessment, and then we can open it up for questions. And since it's such a small group, I would say if you want to interrupt me as I'm going through the slides, that's totally fine. We have an hour in total. So if you know, it naturally kind of goes to a different, we talk more about one thing or the other, that's totally fine. All right, here we go. So I'm going to give a background of the project, what we did, what we found, and what we suggest the town of Westfield do moving forward. We'll be discussing both the big picture housing needs in the area and what this means for the specific case of the vacant scenic view site in town. So, and I think it's important to note, while we're providing recommendations, there's other market forces, local and state approval, public opinion, funding opportunities, site constraints. These all might play a role in actually impacting what eventually happens with the site. So I just want to be clear, while we're providing recommendations and say this is our suggested path forward, it might, based on all those other things I just mentioned, it might actually impact what eventually happens to the site. I just wanted to say that up front. So just a little bit of background about the project. So Scenic View Community Care Center closed in 2018, and the Alpine Meadows fire, both of those things happening in the same general time period, really raised concerns for housing availability in Westfield, and the town saw a need for assessing housing needs. So they put together a steering committee with members from Rural Edge and the Northeastern Vermont Development Association and the town of Westfield. And they applied for a municipal planning grant and received it from the Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So that's what's paying for this work. And so what we've done, this is a big list of all the tasks we completed. We did a demographic trends analysis, so looking at things like age and income, housing supply analysis, so looking at the current stock of housing, a housing survey, so we asked community members both what they think the housing needs are in the community, and also what they might want to see the scenic view site be redeveloped as. We did some interviews with stakeholders in the community, service providers, real estate professionals, major employers, to get a sense of what they see as the trends and in housing in the area. And we did a demand analysis, so looking at what housing might be needed in the short term, given population growth and different demographic trends. And then we did some real estate trends analysis, so looking at what's happening, especially in light of the pandemic, what's happening with prices and availability of housing, both for sale and rental housing. And then all of these kind of get us to the point where we can make recommendations based on all these things that I just described. So now I'm just going to go into each one of those lines and just give the high level findings from each part of the assessment. So demographics, I don't think this will surprise anybody. You know, just over a quarter of the population is over the age of 65. There's a slow rate of population growth, less than 0.5% per year within the town. And the town also has fewer people per household versus the region. And the region includes the counties, it's the Northern Vermont Economic Development District region, which includes Grand Isle, Franklin, Lamoille, Orleans, Caledonia, and Essex counties. And then this chart here showing the median age, Town of Westfield is older comparatively to the county and the region, which might mean a slight different need in housing needs, especially for an elderly population. So some major findings from the housing supply analysis. 32% of the housing in Westfield is seasonal compared to 25% in the county and 19% in the region. And so seasonal housing, second home ownership, people living there part-time, coming up on the weekends to go skiing, living there for a few months in the summer, that kind of thing. Since 2009, the only houses that were built were single family, and about 84% of all the housing in Westfield is single family. So single family as compared to, duplexes, triplexes, higher density number of units in a structure, basically. So that's what we're talking about, the housing type. Most of it is single family. Half of the renters and a third of those with a mortgage pay more than 30% of their income on housing. So paying more than 30% of your income on housing, we call cost burdened. So that's when it might become a challenge to actually make your payments on time. And in the next 5 years, we see an additional housing demand for about 160 households. And that's not just within Westfield. I want to make that clarification. That's within about a 30-minute drive from the scenic view site. So we drew a map, took a snapshot of the population there and looked at the housing demand within that area. People that might be willing to move to Westfield within that geographic region. So from the housing survey, the 51 people took the survey, 3/4 were from Westfield. 41% of the people who took the survey feel that scenic view should be used for senior housing. Many people don't know about housing issues, so we asked a scale question rank these housing issues 1 to 5. We also included an option to say, I don't know about this option, about this issue. And so what we learned is that people don't really know about the availability of rentals in the area, the quality of rentals, if there's enough housing for seasonal workers. So that might mean that it's just not a problem and people don't know about it, or that they don't know what the problem is in order to assess if it's actually a problem or not. So for retirement needs, we asked people what they plan to do about retirement. 25% want to downsize. The same amount would like to stay in their home that they're currently in. And about 20% want to know more about their options. Like, given all these options of what I could do as I get older and need more support to live in a place, what are my options? So those are some of the high-level findings from the housing survey. In our interviews and in the real estate trends analysis, really one of the major findings here was that affordable year-round rentals are high in demand. We heard a lot, there's not a lot of rentals available and people need them. And when we talked to real estate agents, we heard that prices generally are going up, and that the number of listings for houses, particularly in the like $300,000 to $350,000 range, are going down. And then when we asked specifically about the scenic view site, we heard that yes, it would be great for senior housing, but there's challenges to that. There's really a preference, as we saw in the housing survey, that there's a preference to age in place, to grow older in the place where you currently are. We learned that there is challenge to find experienced workers to actually, take care of the people that live in a place. a care facility. There's operational model challenges. So Scenic View before was owned by Rural Edge, it was owned by a couple that lived on site and were able to take care of the needs and really be present 24 hours a day. When you change that model to having to pay someone to be there 24 hours a day, it really shifts the financial feasibility of that kind of operational model. And then there's just issues with medical reimbursement programs. It basically what you're getting reimbursed to take care of somebody isn't what it costs to take care of that person. And so those are some of the main challenges when we talk about Scenic View as meeting a senior housing need. So really what we heard through the interview, what we saw in a lot of the findings is that senior housing is the most needed thing. However, because of where this site is, the rural location, distance to services in Newport, the need for this very specific kind of operational model, a senior only housing is financially less feasible, and therefore we need to kind of think a little bit broader. And so thinking broader, meaning we want to think less in terms of age restriction and think more in terms of single-use occupancy across all ages. So that's all the findings, right? So all these findings, so now we're like, now what? Now what happens moving forward? So we came up with these 4 high-level recommendations, and I'll go into what these specific tactics are within each of these recommendations next. The first one, increase awareness of the site availability. And second one, align community assets with the site. 3, consider incentives for preferred uses. And fourth one, educate community members about housing needs. These first 3 are, we're specifically talking about the Scenic View site. However, it really could be applied to other sites that might become available in the future in Westfield and really in the surrounding area. I think like using this document as kind of a checklist of things to go through, it wouldn't be a bad idea, and it creates a more useful document for the area. And then this last one, 4, is just kind of a more long-term recommendation. Let's see, so now I'm going to get into each of these specifically. So the first one here, increase awareness of site availability. So we suggest perhaps creating a landing page for the site on the town's website just to amplify its presence, include this report, the possible sell sheet like I'm showing here, an example, who to contact and for what purpose, permitting versus the property versus infrastructure, like sewer and water, that kind of thing. Just basically opening up the communication lines to make sure that if somebody's interested, they know who to contact. Investigate the path towards approval for these preferred uses, like a single-use occupancy or senior living site, and then create a decision tree of how that process actually is going to go so that the community knows when they can give input at what time, and really understands the process, that it's not just we write this report and the next day it's going to get developed as this certain use. And then C, just as a means to make sure that senior housing is really not going to be on the table as an option, contact providers of regional senior housing to see if they want to expand into the site, if they think it's feasible from their point of view. The second one, align community assets with the site. So this is just about highlighting and amplifying what the town of Westfield has and how it can use those things to also amplify the site. So creating a Why We Live Here webpage to illustrate the benefits of living in Westfield, things like the community center here, pictured here in the playground, local businesses, events and activities, promote the advantages of the site being in a designated village center and the associated tax benefits to that, and work with local farm to direct providers who could provide a rental, who could supply a rental facility on a reoccurring basis. That this is a recommendation that's probably better aligned with a senior housing facility or a facility that's providing meals, because there's such a strong agricultural component to Westfield, like really making sure that that's connected to the site and that whoever is going to be working on the site to redevelop it and occupy it know that they have access to a lot of great local agricultural producers in the area. Just linking those assets together, essentially. Number 3, consider incentives for preferred uses. So review loan funding opportunities with local banks and service organizations, assist with infrastructure upgrades if applicable and needed, create a neighborhood development area, which is a state program in the village center, which would exempt certain housing projects from an Act 250 review. So this is if it changes from one use to another use. Creating this neighborhood development area could facilitate the development process and the permitting process. Create a financial viability analysis of redevelopment scenarios for prospective developers. So if I'm a developer, I'm interested in making this single-use occupancy. What is it going to cost me to retrofit it as necessary, and how much rent do you think I can get? And just penciling, basically doing the budget to understand what how can I come out in the positive. Aligning the forthcoming zoning update with methods to incentivize housing and incentivize affordable housing, such as through a bonus density. And then consider a pilot program, which is an acronym, payment in lieu of taxes. And that will help to allow a rental operation to stabilize for about 5 to 7 years till it gets to a normal cash flow. This last one, educate community members about housing needs. So here we talk about illustrating the community value of rental properties and housing diversity, just understanding that rental housing, having a diversity of housing is important because it allows people to grow into housing and then age into housing. And if there's a diversity of it that exists, then it allows them to live in the same community and just kind of flow through this natural cycle of different types of housing as they age. Help families make a housing plan for elders needing additional services. So when, before I need it, right, is kind of the ideal. Before I need to move out of my house, what resources are available to me? What do I want? What kind of financing or what can I pay for? Who's going to be there to help me? Just understanding what those options are and what my preferences are, and communicating that with the people that are going to help take care of me is just going to be a helpful line of communication as the community ages, as community members age. C, have resources for seniors accessible at town offices, online, distribute to local service providers, basically making sure everyone understands what resources are available, and connect with regional and state service providers with local groups to inform them of available resources around existing programs like home sharing, housing retrofits, etc. So those are the recommendations. Just to give you a sense of where we're at in this report, we have a draft report that's out. It's posted on the website. We are collecting feedback on that until the 26th of January, and then we're going to update it, incorporate all those edits, and then issue the final report probably early January. So that is all I have to say. And I am curious to hear if you want to expand on anything or clarify anything. you're all on mute.
Thank you, Amy. Great job. I think that gave a really great overview of the project and what we found coming through it.
Good. It was a fun project. I did enjoy it. Anything that
is Anne trying? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thank you. It's very clear. I'm
Okay.
just confused about your timing at the end here. We were talking about, oh, you said January, but I guess you were talking about early February.
Oh, did I say January? Yeah.
Okay.
I just changed that because yeah, that's probably why. All right. Well, so the other thing is this is going to be recorded and posted. A link will be posted in the various places, the town website and the town Facebook page, so people can view this after, so they can get an understanding of the project and provide input as well. That's really it.
Good job.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was a very nice, concise presentation.
Yeah, I don't want to waste anybody's time. let's say what we needed to say and make sure it's clear, and then let everyone eat dinner.
Well, and I think it's good to remember that 85% of those recommendations and bullet points are not unique to Scenic View. They really apply to the entire community and not just the one specific site.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, I hope this can be a useful document moving forward. Housing continues to be such a challenge for so many communities in Vermont, but beyond. So hopefully you find it to be a useful tool moving forward as you think about different projects or sites in the region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much. And we will stay in touch and get you any feedback that you have or that you receive forward to us, and we'll get it taken care of.